The modern era of literature. So, the modern era took place from around early 20th century to around the 1960s. It was a wonderful time to be alive in society. This became this. This became this. This became this. This became this, became this, became this, became this, became this. Parties, World War, parties, depression, World War II, Blitzkrieg, Boogaloo, and the constant threat of the entire world being gone in the snap of a finger due to a giant explosion because two guys don't really like each other that much, surprisingly gave a lot of people some ideas of what to write about. With average literacy rates on the rise, education of the common people becoming a priority in Western countries, and breakthroughs in science and medicine, people in the Western world were generally prosperous and could write about whatever they wanted. And people did. For the first time, the regular everyday man, or woman, lifted up a pen, or perhaps got out a typewriter, and began to write. And they had a lot to say. See, the previous major era of literature, naturalism, which basically was just like aggressive realism, wasn't as free-thinking or open as modernism was. Most modern authors could write about whatever they wanted. They could write about whatever made them happy, whatever made them sad, or just whatever was on their mind that day. They followed largely the modern philosophy of epistemology. Epistemology is basically the theory of knowledge, and it had four main points. 1. The philosophical analysis of the nature of knowledge and how it relates to such concepts such as truth, belief, and justification. 2. Various problems of skepticism, which I like to see some proof of if I'm being honest. 3. The sources and scope of knowledge and justified belief. And 4. The criteria for knowledge and justification. Epistemology addresses such questions as, what makes beliefs justified? What does it mean to say that we know something? And fundamentally, how do we know that we know things? So, if you were a college student in 1950 and had access to proffered methamphetamine to write a 20-page thesis in the hour before it's due and needed a topic, you could talk about how rejecting the norms of society was all the modern era was about. Taking an idea and running with it. Believing and writing about fantasies and other things you desire. Question everything. Be random. Be spontaneous. And if you want to be sad, then maybe you can just Now, I know what you're thinking. What does any of this have to do with the story? Victory Lap, written in 2009, is a sensitive story that deals with sensitive issues. A sheltered, abused child has to make a decision about whether to do what's right, even if it means losing his life, or just ignore it and let it go. Even though it was technically written after the modern era has ended, it still has many influences from the age. The author is trying to say something in writing this. Talking about such taboo subjects like sexual abuse and rape openly is rejecting the norms of society. A kid has to be skeptical of the manipulation he's grown up with, make a decision that may conflict with his own way of life, and might very well end it all the same. That's the example of the philosophy of epistemology coming through, and I'd encourage everyone to look for examples of that in every piece of modern literature you read from now until the end of time. So that, briefly, is how the modern era of literature affects literature today. I would have gone in depth into the story and explained themes and messages and symbols and all that jazz, but that sounds a lot like not my job.